My career is 40 plus years, about half of it as a frontline advancement executive and half as a consultant. And what you're about to see, Abacus, has been a labor of love for over 10 years. And I've been doing research behind it for at least that long. And I'm going to share why and what that genesis story looks like. But first, this is about major donor fundraising and the people that do it. And that's everyone from executive directors to directors of development, VPs, and gift officers. And they're facing a lot of headwinds these days. There's a shrinking donor pool at about small dollar donors, particularly reducing 7 to 9% a year, and a polarization of wealth. There are many tools now to help with donor research, but you need to make sense of it. And that's often very hard. Philanthropic capacity estimates, which are things you get from Wealth Engine and Donor Search and iWave and so forth, often come back with wide variability. And from all the fundraisers I've spoken with, they're often taken with a grain of salt. Personal biases weigh heavily in fundraisers' approach to a donor and approach to determining how much to ask that donor for in a campaign or a major gift environment. Informal or no ask amount process. I've asked over the years groups of fundraisers, hundreds, how many of you have a process internally to come up with an amount to ask for a major gift? And virtually no one has one. And then analysis paralysis. How do you know when you're ready? Do you have enough of the right information to move forward with having a gift conversation with a donor? By the way, feel free to jump in, ask questions, put it in chat. Roger is going to be monitoring that. Okay. So let me tell you a story. This is my research that I've done over 10 years, where I would be in front of fundraising group of fundraisers. I put them in small groups, and I gave them 2 case studies of a donor, a small donor and a large donor, 21 variables, excuse me, having to do with giving to the organization, giving history, wealth assessment, what they do with other nonprofits, and how they engage with the fundraisers organization. And I asked them, how much should we ask for these 2 donors? And over the years, and I collected all the results, over the years, the range of asks for the small donor was $15,000 to $250,000, all based on the same information. And for the large donor, it was $50,000 to $3 million. What this is clearly indicating is the power of bias, personal bias, people's relationship to money, institutional self-esteem. Oh, how can I, in this small human service organization, ask someone for $100,000 or $250,000 or what have you? This is the living, breathing example of bias with fundraisers that motivated me to come up with a solution to this problem, because bias should not be part of the equation for arriving at an ask amount. It should be based on objective data, in my view. So I'm going to set the stage for you. You're a gift officer, you have a great relationship with a donor, they've got a great giving history, you're entering into a campaign, you want to talk to the donor about it because you know they're interested in what the campaign's for, and you've got all this donor data put together, you've got a sense of their capacity, but now what? And from all the fundraisers I've interviewed, through our beta testing, through the course of my career, fundraisers understand at the end of the day, it's been nothing but a guessing game, shooting from the hip, and relying on intuition, thinking fast on your feet, and divine good fortune. And that's no way to run a business. So I want to introduce you to Abacus, Major Donor Ask Calculator. That is the product of all that information, plus beta testing, and moving it from an Excel environment where my clients have been using it for over 5 years in their major donor work into a web environment. I'm going to start from the end and show you what the results page looks like, or at least the beginning of what the results page looks like. Abacus gives the fundraiser 3 data points. One, it is an ask readiness score. Do they have enough of the right information to feel comfortable moving forward to having a gift conversation? So if they're missing some key pieces of information, this number could be in the 80% or 70%. And I'll tell you more about what that means later. You get a pledge ask amount. This is an aspirational 3-year pledge you can confidently and respectfully ask for. And I say respectfully because you don't want to ruin the relationship with the donor by being too low or too high. You also don't want to leave money on the table, and you want to be able to walk in and have confidence in your number. The pledge goal is what you can expect to get over multiple experiences from the ask amount. So ask 42 or round it to 40 to get 32. And it's this number, the pledge goal, which is really the important number, because that's what you're getting in the bank. That's what the pledge is going to be. And that's what you can use to value your major donor pipeline or your major donor portfolio with a fair amount of accuracy. And I'll share that with you. So the approach is a smart wizard. Think of TurboTax, where it pulls you through a number of questions. Obviously, the name of the donor, their age, are they working? If you have a donor ID record, you can put it in there for import later. Giving history to the organization, number of gifts, largest single gift. This is all information that's should be readily available to the fundraiser. I'm skipping one that has to do with philanthropic capacity. I wanted to show you that now we look at the engagement with the organization, and the rest of the questions are yes, no, and I don't know. So you don't need to be digging around anywhere for information. You should know this information off the top of your head because of the relationship you have built with the donor. And like I said before, if you have too many don't knows, that means you need more discovery with the donor in order to be fully equipped to have a gift conversation. So as you go through, it takes you through all of these 6 pages of questions, including interest and readiness. In other words, if you're in a campaign and a donor has said, hey, I'm really not interested in that, I'm interested in this, that's an important consideration in the calculation. Then the donor profile notes is an extra page, optional, where if you want to collect all the other donor research that you have and put it all in one place, you can copy and paste it and put it all in there on the top. And then down here is some recommendations about who should be part of the Ask team. Because one of the products of Abacus is a profile, a profile that has all this information available to you. Back to the results page. We also give you an idea of what this readiness score means. So, if you're 90% plus, you should go into that ask conversation with high confidence. Anything below that, you need to do more research. Simple as that. Often the question comes up, is the donor ready to be asked? Well, if you ask the donor for a meeting and told them why you want to meet, to discuss a gift, and they accept the meeting, then voila, they're ready for the meeting and they're ready to be asked. It's as simple as that. It's not high science. On the pull down here for the numbers, we give you a breakout of what the annualized payment would be on $42,000. Now, believe it or not, if I ask Barry, instead of asking Barry for a gift of $40,000 over 3 years, Barry, would you consider a gift of $12,000 or $14,000 a year for each of the next 3 years? Oh, sure, I can do that. It actually makes a difference.
Glad you said that for me.
What's that?
Glad you said that for me.
But people, again, people's biases, including donors, have a relationship to money. They look at the big number and get freaked out, but they look at the smaller number and say, oh, yeah, I can afford that every year. Or net after taxes, depending on their situation, it could be as little as $10,000 a year. The calculator also makes a recommendation as to whether to discuss an estate gift as part of your conversation. And in this case, it suggests not to. And then here is just some language that a fundraiser can use in their ask conversation, which is sort of tried and true. Including completing the ask. If I haven't asked you for enough, please tell me. I always do that, and I'd say a third of the time people had a larger number in mind than we asked for, because nothing's perfect. $42,000 or $45,000, we may have missed the mark somewhere. They could be much wealthier than we thought. So we want to make sure we leave room for upside and for downside. Everybody with me so far? Okay. So this is the library that you accumulate, and I'll walk you through it. So you can imagine if you have dozens and dozens and dozens of profiles and you want to search for find your donor, you can just type in one of their names and it'll pop up. In a corporate account, there'll be a field right here saying which fundraiser, which gift officer created the profile. So if I want to look at all the profiles that Larry created, boom, I'll get them all because I am managing Larry as a head fundraiser, and I want to see all of Larry's profiles. Okay, date of creation, readiness score, obviously the results page information here. Now here is the opportunity for the fundraiser to give the stage of what stage they're in the ask. We start with not asked. That's the default. And then they could hit the pencil and come up with, I've asked, and the gift is pending. They're considering it. I haven't asked yet, or I have asked, and they've responded with a pledge of $25,000. You hit the pencil, and you have an opportunity to put in the $25,000. In this way, management can see what the gift officers are doing, and the gift officer can see what they're doing, and they can see which of the donors they need to improve their information to bolster their readiness score. If you want to just look at the summary, you can hit the button, the detail, which I'll show you in a minute, or you can delete it. You can also download everything into a CSV file, and I'll show you what that means and why that's important. Any questions on this library? So this is the profile. You can download it as a PDF. That you have the option to do that. You have the option to email it to yourself or to someone else. This first section are the recommendations, the donor's name, and then all the recommendations that you find on the results page. Then these are all the responses you gave, and it'll show you where you don't know something, and you need to then use this for your next conversation with the donor what to learn from them, right? And then down here, if you can see it, are the additional notes you added that you collected from other research. So in this way, you have everything in one place, and you have a sense of how ready you are, what holes you need to fill, in terms of donor knowledge, and then you can move forward. Now, when you download everything, this is where consultants come in a big way, because consultants are working with their clients, and they want to be able to value a portfolio. You want to get a sense of, if I want to start a campaign, for instance, take your top 50 donors and run profiles on them. And if the goals total to something that is far below your campaign objective, then perhaps you need to rethink your campaign for the moment. Or if you're doing a feasibility study, run profiles on your top 50 to help you decide who to try and interview for your feasibility study, because they'll be the most influential in getting to your goal. Ask pledge amount obviously keeps track of where you are, how much has been raised. You might also see in the bottom here the median. So the pledge goal median gift is 30. If you find yourself running ahead of the median, as we are here, right, that gives you a sense of your progress against a standard. And maybe your skill in asking or what have you is resulting in a larger result and more giving. And this is one of the metrics that's commonly used in evaluating a campaign. Another metric is pledge to goal. So in this case, the amount of the pledge, 25,000, was a little bit higher than 22,000. So it was 14% higher than what the goal said, but it was below what the ask amount was, right? You asked 29, you got 25. So you're at 114% of goal. And again, you can see your progress by adding all that up over time. You can also look at your portfolio readiness score. Let's see here. To give the management and yourself a good sense of your overall relationship with all of your donors in your portfolio. And that, gee, I need to upgrade, or I need to really get going talking to those donors where I need more information before I proceed. It's a lot to take in. Does this make sense to you? Great. In addition to all that, there's a knowledge base where there's instructions on how to go through the Smart Wizard. There's frequently asked questions, a number of video tutorials on everything that we've talked about. I've been doing a series of webinars. I've done 5 so far, and that's, you can see those recordings, and a blog as well. So for people who have subscribed, there's much more additional value within. Excuse me. And once we get enough subscribers, I'll also be doing an annual or twice a year ask training, the art and science of the ask for subscribers to Abacus. So when do you use Abacus? Before a gift conversation, as I've been talking about. For an individual fundraiser, you want to run profiles and make sure you're ready and have an amount that should be, by the way, you need a reality check on these numbers. So if you're working with a committee or working with volunteers who know the donor, when Abacus says ask for $40,000, you want to go back to the people who know the donor and say, does this make sense to you? Is this way more than you think that they can afford, or do you think that, gee, you should ask for more? That reality check is absolutely important as a dynamic in any fundraising operation. And Abacus gives you a rational and objective launching point for that conversation, rather than guessing. Those of you who have been in committee meetings discussing how much to ask so-and-so for a gift know what I mean. It's like throwing spaghetti against the wall sometimes, even with great donor information. Thank you, Roger. It's still important, and it's still difficult. Campaign feasibility preparation, as I mentioned, absolutely take your best donors, run profiles, and see who are the most opportunistic, or who are the most likely people to be on your side and want to be interviewed and contribute. Campaign portfolio management. So you're in a campaign, you have 5 fundraisers with portfolios, you have volunteers with portfolios, 2 or 3 people. You want to be able to manage those portfolios, and you can do it all through one portal on Abacus, through a corporate account. And then value and manage your donor pipeline. When fundraising shops want to grow and they need to make the argument to management to spend the money to hire an additional gift officer, you need to be able to show empirically how much money you're leaving on the table because you don't have enough people out there building relationships and asking for a gift. Well, Abacus helps you there, and it does it with rather accurate numbers, and I'll show you that right now. Right now, the goal number in aggregate is 2% off of actual pledges. And I'll show you some graphs in a moment. As I mentioned, I validated it with 400 fundraisers plus. What do I mean by that? I started building the algorithm of Abacus by taking the median of, remember I showed you the big range of responses on asks? I took the median values of the asks and the goals, and I built an algorithm that got me to those numbers, within 5% of those numbers, using those same 21 questions. And that was my launching point for refining it. And I've been working on that for 5 years plus. So here is a donor, Robert S., actual donor, pledged $2 million. Abacus's goal was $2 million and recommended an ask of 2.5. The traditional philanthropy capacity estimate was $250,000. That was the low end of the range, meaning the range was probably 250 to 500,000, which is how it typically comes through. So if the fundraiser relied heavily on the philanthropic capacity estimate, they'd be leaving a lot of money on the table. In this scenario, Peter pledged 100,000. The goal was 113, and the ask was 170,000. It was 150,000. This is what Abacus suggested the ask be. The low end of the range on the wealth estimator was 150% off of the actual pledge, 250,000. So what does that tell you? If the fundraiser followed that as sort of your basis, you'd be asking for a gift way beyond what the donor would have likely given, and possibly insulted them in some way or diminished you in their eyes by asking for some outlandish amount. Again, pretty unreliable numbers. And I've asked Roger this, I've asked the Lilly School of Philanthropy, I've asked a number of consultants if there's ever been a study that looks at the results of wealth assessment ranges against the actual pledges. And no one's ever heard of one. And so the data I'm collecting will be helpful in that regard. Finally, the aggregation of 13 actual pledges, meaning the median point of 13 actual pledges, Abacus came in at the median came in at 50,000. The median of Abacus's goal came in at 49,000. off by 2%. The asks came in at 40% above actual pledges, no surprise. And look at that, the low end of wealth assessment range, median, came in at 250% of actual pledge. So this is giving me the confidence to say, okay, Abacus is a pretty good tool. It's getting you closer to reality than anything that is out there for a fundraiser. There's nothing, and Roger, correct me if you know of something, or someone else correct me, if there's anything out there that helps a fundraiser zone in on a number after all the donor research has been collected.